You're listening to the Crowdfunding Nerds podcast, a podcast that will help you succeed before, during, and after your crowdfunding event. And now, here is your host, Andrew Lowen.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Crowdfunding Nerds. I am excited for today's episode, and as always, I am joined by my wonderfully awesome SEO marketing manager, Rick, and sexy Irish Sean. How are you guys doing?
After last week's episode, I realized that no one wants to hear their own voice back at them. And when I had that stupid, horrible, "What's that?" it just sounded horrible. So today I'm just going to say, hello, fellow nerds.
You can do better, Rick. We can all do better. What's up, nerds? What's going on?
Well, I'm excited. I'm going to be getting my hands on Dune pretty soon, the board game. Looking forward to playing that. Have any of you played that board game before?
No, and it's been many years since I've seen the movie, but I heard that it was extremely thematically on. If you're into the movie, if you're into that lore, then you'll love the board game.
Yeah, I hear it's got a lot of strategic depth, so that's why I sort of want to sink my teeth into it.
Yeah, do you plan on playing solo, or are you going to play with a group? What's your main aim with Dune?
I don't know if you can play it solo, because it's a game where you play different houses and you sort of have to take over all the spice. So it's like a competitive game. So it probably would just be with my wife at the moment.
Does she like those kind of games?
I think she tolerates them. Like is a strong word.
Yeah, that's the key. I think my wife is my player number 2, and we'll be talking about the ISS Vanguard today, which is a game that I absolutely am excited about, but my wife is not.
What's great about ISS Vanguard is you guys have families and wives that can play with you. I'm like Mr. Solo here, and I can play ISS Vanguard because it starts with one player.
That's awesome.
It's a cooperative game as opposed to playing against each other. I have a lot of friends with family members that don't like competing against each other. They, for some reason, they just don't like doing that kind of game. So this game actually will probably appeal to a lot of my friends and family.
Yeah, my family is very competitive, so I prefer playing cooperative games with them. And you're working towards a common enemy rather than against each other, because it can turn nasty.
Yeah. Funny enough, my family were the same way. We tend to enjoy competitive games that are shorter, because if one person dominates, then you can play again. Something like Star Realms is a great fit for that. We love playing Star Realms and other games that are a little bit shorter, but a game that's longer, say like Scythe or Terraforming Mars, I love games like that, but it's not really a huge in our household because of the competitive nature and how long it is. It's like, all right, we just spent 2 to 3 hours and now we're enemies at the end. It's not like you can play again.
Well, they say that Monopoly is the family killer of board games.
But yeah, so let's get into our topic. So the first thing, we wanted to discuss a little bit about manufactured urgency versus legitimate urgency, and what those things are, why they matter, and how that relates to crowdfunding. And then topic number 2, in particular, we're going to discuss Gamefound and what they are doing to disrupt the industry, and how we think it's going to go, what they're doing right now, what they're all about, and why you should care about them as a creator. Let's get right into it. What is manufactured urgency?
It's what we talked about in the previous episode, sort of like these bait and switch tactics. I know one example of manufactured urgency is you sometimes go on these landing pages and they would have like a fake countdown timer. It's like, oh, you've got, a minute to put in your email address. And then if you actually wait for the minute, the timer just resets. It's purely cosmetic. It's not, it's purely just manufactured. This kind of the false sense of urgency, which is a bit manipulative.
Well, it doesn't have to be fake, though, for it to be manufactured. For example, there's a big restaurant drive-through chain in our country here that has this fake rib sandwich that only comes out every once in a while. And it sells like crazy only because it's out like 6 weeks out of the year. And that's, the time you buy it. And, so everyone, it's the grossest thing I've ever seen, but I always buy like 3 or 4 every year just to have it and taste it, and they're making it where people want it because it's only available for a certain amount of time, and they actually are true to their promise and they take it off the market, and then you have to wait till next year to enjoy that cringe eating rib thing again.
Manufactured urgency is, we can see this in courses. A lot of online courses will open up the gates for a 6-week period. They'll have a huge marketing push, and they will actually close the gate at the end of that 6 weeks. You'll see other things like sales, for example, summer sale or whatever at your favorite department store. That's legitimate because corporate decided the sale is from X date to Y date. And at the end of that time, you're not going to be able to buy that clothing on sale. The person behind the desk won't have the authority to give you that sale, right? So to contrast manufactured urgency with legitimate urgency. So first of all, manufactured urgency doesn't have to be snake oil. However, it can. So like Sean, you were saying that, the countdown timer, only 5 minutes to get this thing. And then you refresh the page and it's only 5 minutes to get this thing still. Yeah. Or you wait until the countdown timer goes to 0 and it just resets. That's the funniest. A couple of other examples of manufactured urgency would be
a car dealership. When have you not gone to a car dealership and they don't have some kind of sale? Now, they have manufactured urgency, but they do it so often. I think people are now blind to it, at least where we are. But yeah, there's always a sale at a car dealership, no matter what. It could be, oh look, it's what's today? Today's the it's the end of the year sale. Okay, now it's the beginning of the year sale. Okay, now it's the second month of the year sale.
Right. And that's the danger with manufactured urgency, is that it tends not to be as believable. And so you run into these problems where you launch a sale of a product or you tell people it's only for a limited time, and people generally don't believe you, or they say, oh, well, I'll just get this later. And the sale price is the real price, right? There's that whole meme of Black Friday where it's like, hold at $4.99, hold $4.99 the day before. And then the day of Black Friday, it's $6.99 marked down to $4.99. And everyone's like, go for it. It's completely manufactured, right?
And do you think that artificial urgency is even in how products are displayed on shelves? If you ever go to like a shop, it will say only $9.99, only $2.99. It's sort of like that manufactured urgency is based in there. So like psychologically, you go, oh, it's only this, and I got to get it now because it's only that.
Right. And there are so many sales that you don't buy a product unless it's on sale nowadays. It's required that there's free or subsidized shipping. If I buy a product on a website, I better be able to get free shipping if I spend over a certain amount. On the back end of things, shipping is very expensive. It's not free at all. And of course, that kind of gets into value proposition, which is different. But let's talk about legitimate urgency. What is legitimate urgency?
I feel like we're in an economics class, and you're like the economics professor asking the students what they think of this. But yeah, legitimate urgency. Well, there's quite a few different aspects of legitimate urgency. It could be based on supply and demand. It could be based on price. It could be based on seasons. Urgency is when you have a product that a lot of people want and there's just not enough of it to go around. That's when you start getting the urgency. And that's what you want to create when you promote your product. You want to let it know it's exclusive, it's a great product, and we have limited quantities because we can only make so many.
Absolutely. So you have two ways that legitimate urgency is created. Number one is the supply of an item, if there's just not enough to go around. And number two, if the date, right, the time can actually expire. And the key, I think, to the expiration date is that it's a huge deal if you miss it. For example, my wife's birthday just passed, and if I missed the time window to get her a present on time, I'm in the doghouse so hard, and there's nothing that can be done to fix that. So there is a legitimate urgency to make sure that I have a present, that I show her that I thought about her and that kind of thing. And if I do it after the fact, then it just isn't going to be the same, is it?
So fellow nerds, how do we apply this to our crowdfunding promotions and products that we're trying to sell?
Well, the interesting thing about crowdfunding is that urgency is built into the platform. You've got a window in which to make a purchase. So that is already sort of accounted for. Last episode, we talked about purchasing barriers or objections purchasers have. And one of them is I can wait or I can do it later. And what crowdfunding does is that it helps diminish that objection in people by saying there's only a limited time which everyone can back this, and it's either going to get backed or it's not going to get backed. So you can either jump on board or it's going to, the train's going to go by.
Right. And the timer expires. It legitimately expires Everybody knows the 24-day campaign or the 30-day or whatever it is. The length of your campaign is going to eventually hit its final moment, and that's it. So, but there still is a debate on whether that's manufactured or legitimate. If I wanted to buy, let's say in theory, the new ISS Vanguard on Gamefound, I mean, it's raised millions of dollars already, and I wonder, will it just be at retail? That's something as a customer, I think maybe I'll just buy it later. Maybe I'll wait for reviews, and if it's good and if people like it and whatever, then I can just buy it. Right.
See, I'm like the opposite, because when I see something like that, for example, I'm still hurt by not getting Scythe through crowdfunding, because they had some pretty cool upgrades with their pieces. The current game, has it has okay pieces for the game, but the ones they had for the upsells and the markups, these things are phenomenal. And my friend got one, and I'm like, oh man! And every time I see his board game set, I'm just like, I wish I got that. I wish I got that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I see it, and it's like, do I jump? Do I pull the trigger, or do I take a risk? And for one of my favorite game sites, I took a bad risk, in my opinion.
Experienced Kickstarter backers look at a project, and the first thing they think about is, can I buy it later? Or I like this, but do I need it right now? Maybe they hit that remind me button and then they leave. It's the job of the creator to convince them to get off the fence and jump all in. There are various tactics that people employ to try to get people off the fence. And you're never going to get 100% of the people off the fence. You are going to get a certain percentage of people to buy, depending on how effective your tactics are. So tactic number one, just like you said, Rick, stretch goals that are exclusive to Kickstarter. Stretch goals like for Scythe, upgraded resource tokens that look awesome. Grain that isn't just in a lot of games you'll have cardboard tokens. For Scythe, you've got kind of like cheap little plastic bits and that sort of thing. You can get upgraded tokens. You can now get upgraded miniatures, like the miniatures, you can get them in metal and other things like that. You can also get additional cards that might not be available. You can get, I know that a lot of games will actually turn all of the Kickstarter goals that are included into an expansion that later costs money. So what you're really doing is you're making the argument that you should care about my campaign right now because it's got upgraded components, because it's Kickstarter exclusive, because you're going to get it cheaper, because it will never be available at retail. What are reasons that you guys would get off the fence and back a campaign, whereas you might just hit remind me or scroll on past otherwise?
I suppose if there was an exclusive that, let's say if it was a card game, for example, and there was an exclusive card that was only in this Kickstarter launch, and this card will never be printed again. And if it's a pretty popular game and you plan on playing it for a long time, then that's a cool thing to have in your library of games, is this unique card that could probably potentially be a lot of money down the road at some stage if the game was popular enough. Like Magic the Gathering, cards can go for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's just insane how valuable some of those cards can go. For.
Yeah, absolutely.
Manufacturer urgency through crowdfunding, it really plays a role on my wallet. It's interesting because, like, Tim, for me, like, again, like if it's something that really, like, if it's a game that really strikes me, I think it's really cool, I'll probably end up buying it and backing it on a crowdfunding platform, because, like, how many of these games have you seen that have actually, like, made it out into real distribution centers and into real game stores? And I'm worried that, I see a game that I really like, I think it really connects with me, and I'm worried that I'll never see it again.
Absolutely. So there is a legitimate urgency to products that may never make it into distribution. Nowadays, you kind of have to have the right type of product to make it into distribution. You have to be able to print enough quantity of the product for them to even consider you. Because let's say you print 2,000 units of whatever it is that you make. If it performs very well in the retail market, they're going to want to order again. But because you did not print enough units, they can't really consider you, because if it's a success, you're not going to be able to deliver more when they need it. You're going to take 6 months to deliver more. And so that's a big problem. A lot of people think, if this product sells, 1,000 units, distribution will just buy the rest if I print 2,000. And that's a huge barrier to distribution picking you up, is that if it's a successful product, they're going to want to buy more, and you're not going to have more available in time. But you can turn that into a positive by telling people that this product may not be available at retail. One other element of manufactured urgency is an early bird special. So there are positive implementations and negative implementations that I've seen. So one early bird strategy that I really do like, because I don't think we got into positive examples last podcast, was a CMON. So Cool Mini or Not does this, does a huge mini centric campaign on the regular, and they always have an early bird special. I really like the way that they handle it, because what they do is they take one exclusive miniature sculpt, and they say everyone who backs in the first 24 hours gets this for free. And what I like about that, and then if you miss it in the first 24 hours and you get to the campaign and you find out about it on, let's say, day 7, you can still get that miniature sculpt. It's just going to cost a little bit extra. It becomes an add-on for everyone that didn't get it in the first 24 hours. The reason that I really like that strategy is because, number one, it rewards all of the people that have been following you. It incentivizes them to back now. It does kind of tip the needle for me to back right now, to kind of protect that extra thing that I get. I have to back in the first 24 hours in order to get it. And it doesn't discourage future backers from buying all of the things. If they made that thing exclusive and then it disappeared in the first 24 hours, you'll have all the completionists saying, I can't get the entire game, so that it's kind of a bummer and it's a negative, so they might not back. Or people will say, well, these people got better value for the same amount of money, so that's always something that you can deal with. It's always possible to counter, because it's now an add-on. It's $5 or whatever. So I really like the way that CMON does that. I think that that's a great implementation of an early bird. For the most part, I hate the otherwise.
I think from a marketing standpoint, I think the early bird, if a company does offer one, should do one not on the crowdfunding platform, but within their community, like through like their email outreach or whatever, where they can say, hey, we're going to do an early bird special just for you guys. If you buy this game through our crowdfunding platform, just shoot us your email and we'll get you that early bird. And I think if you do something like that, you make it inclusive to your community, where they can get the early bird, but at the same time, you're not showing off like, oh, look, these people who bought it early get this and you don't. I think it's a win-win if you do something like that, where you make it more exclusive and more intimate to your community members.
And I think that's actually a really cool way to do it. Gamefound, however, did a different tactic. And I think that this is the first time I've ever seen this, because they are a crowdfunding platform. They have a new hot project called the ISS Vanguard that's on Gamefound, that if you were a part of the if you were in the Gamefound system, if you signed up to create an account before Gamefound launched ISS Vanguard, you would get $5 credit to apply to that project. And I think that was very creative and very different. It's kind of the same thing as saying $5 off, maybe a $5 early bird special, if you will. However, it had a much different effect on my psychology as a buyer. I thought, wow, I've got $5. I kind of don't want to let this go to waste. One of the first things I thought. What do you guys think about that $5 store, in essence, $5 credit on the crowdfunding platform?
I suppose it's interesting because I got that as well, and it didn't really push the needle for me in that regard. I wasn't contemplating of purchasing ISS Vanguard, whilst I suppose you were. So that probably pushed you off the edge, whilst for me it was more so that I never had the intention. So, you could probably make it 50% off. I probably still wouldn't have bought it. I've got other games I've got to get through. So that's sort of my philosophy.
I'm a sucker for sci-fi.
For me, I didn't even know what Gamefound was until they started ISS Vanguard. So I got left out and didn't get that lovely coupon. But I think a lot of people who are listening probably don't know what Gamefound is. And I think we should probably let them know and discuss what they do and what makes them different in the crowdfunding process.
Definitely. So Gamefound started as a pledge manager. A pledge manager is something that you can use after your Kickstarter campaign is over. You can take, in essence, more pre-sales in what's called the pledge manager. You can get, you can make sure that people give you their correct address. It's a place where people can go in case they move, let's say 2 months, 3 months, 6 months in to your fulfillment of your Kickstarter campaign. They can actually go in there and update their address. I believe one of the most important functions of a pledge manager is that you can charge shipping after the campaign is over, several months after the campaign is over, when you have a more accurate read on what the actual price for shipping is going to be. And of course, I'll mention again the all important, pre-sales before you actually receive the product. So that's pretty important. And then one other element that's very important are add-ons. You make 15 to 25% additional revenue in a pledge manager.
So how is a pledge manager different from a store then? Because Gamefound are very, very clear and on their website by stipulating that they're not a store, and it's why they don't have a add cart button. So what's the major difference between a store and a pledge manager?
So when you buy something from, let's say, Amazon, which a lot of people that listen to this will be familiar with, you expect to receive that product. It's in stock somewhere, you expect to receive it. But a pledge manager, you're still kind of dealing with that. Can the creator actually fulfill their promise? So you're buying into a promise of a future delivery, and you always have the risk that you will not receive a product and that it will not be made good, meaning you won't get a refund, or you won't eventually get the product, or they won't ship another one out to you. That risk is above zero with a pledge manager as well as Kickstarter. So that's, for me, the major difference between a pledge manager and a store.
And then once the game is released and it's shipped out, what happens to the pledge manager? Does it shut down, or does it turn into a store after the point or after the fact?
So I guess it can do either. We have one client right now that went to Kickstarter and is currently in the process of fulfilling their Kickstarter. So they went to Kickstarter last December, A Christmas Carol RPG by Verge Games. And this December, we're marketing like crazy through their pledge manager and making a bunch of sales. And it's something that they're fulfilling orders. So even after the orders are fulfilled, they're still, some of the orders are fulfilled, they're still taking orders. However, I don't think that this can actually be used as a store. So when all the fulfillment is complete, then you're going to get, it's probably done.
From a crowdfunding producer or publisher perspective, how easy or difficult is it to integrate this pledge manager into your Kickstarter campaign? Is there like an API? Do you have to manually move things over? How does it work?
So in general, after your Kickstarter campaign funds, you're going to get in essence, a spreadsheet. Well, it boils down to a spreadsheet. You'll get everyone who backed your campaign, all the information they put in, and their email address and what they backed and that kind of thing. You'll be able to put all that into the pledge manager, and it's going to populate with some information. You're going to need to do a lot. You're going to need to recreate your pledge tiers and other information like that. If you want to use it as a pre-sale program, you're going to need to maybe recreate some of your Kickstarter page, that, the story that you use to kind of sell people on the idea of the game and that kind of thing. You put in your add-ons and whatnot. And when you'll in essence, you're going to have a button that you can hit to send a notification to everyone that backed your Kickstarter campaign that the pledge manager is now live. And that will let people go in, make sure they have their correct shipping address, make sure they apply. Actually, what's going to happen is it's going to put people into different categories where let's say I spent $115 on the ISS Vanguard. I'm going to need to go in to the pledge manager, and assuming that the Gamefound is a pledge manager and now a crowdfunding platform, which we're going to talk about, but I'm going to have $115 credit that I'll apply to a certain reward, and the rewards that are available are going to depend on whatever you categorized me. You know, maybe if I backed in the first 24 hours, then you create like the early bird category, and then I see a different price on certain items, or maybe I have access to certain items that others don't have, you know, that kind of thing. And I just basically kind of treat it like a store. I add products to the cart, I check out and actually finish paying, but of course I already have credit. I have store credit to use whatever I backed on Kickstarter. That counts as my credit. But I can always spend more. So I'll have to pay for shipping and other things like that too.
So it sounds like you can actually, instead of having just, bulk generic backing pledges, you can really specifically tailor it to individual types of backers and interests in your product.
Absolutely. So to use Verge Games, A Christmas Carol RPG, there are some people who just wanted the PDF so that they could download the PDF, play right away instead of waiting for it to be shipped. And, because it's a one-shot Christmas themed RPG. And so a lot of people just backed and purchased the digital downloads. You know, there are other people that want the full-on miniature sculpts and that kind of thing. And, you can bundle packages together to appeal to different groups, of course.
So I suppose what Gamefound then seeks to do is it then merges crowdfunding with pledge managers, and it's specifically focused on board games, right? They don't accept any other type of projects on the platform. And I suppose another unique feature of it is that it's actually a Polish company, so it's actually based within Europe, and it follows some different probably legal rules than American companies, such as it has GDPR, that really aren't applicable to Kickstarter, for example.
Right, because Kickstarter is based in the US. Now, this is something that's very interesting. Gamefound's tactic. Most pledge managers, what they'll do is they'll charge you a percentage of your campaign that you raised, or they'll charge a certain percentage off of the backers, off of the future purchases that are made by your backers on their platform, usually like 5%, similar to Kickstarter, plus the credit card fees, of course. And that's how they make their money. Gamefound did something very different. They made it completely free. And I actually saw Gamefound as the top tier pledge manager for that reason. You might get more customer support with CrowdOx or the actual company called Pledge Manager, which are excellent services, but Gamefound did this for free. And then a lot of people used it, and a year later, or maybe it was 2 years later, they used their database of 330,000 accounts that were created on Gamefound.com to, in essence, be the seed to begin their crowdfunding platform. So they didn't start from square one. They didn't say, "Hey, we're now a crowdfunding platform. Come at us, bro." They actually have a huge database of users, whereas Kickstarter's got something like 30 million or more. Gamefound, they gave themselves their absolute best chance in order to succeed.
On their blog, they actually explain why they made it for free. And this is what they said. They said, "Some people offering services for free may seem strange or suspicious, but we have always said that we never considered it free. We gained a huge value from that. The gain was creating a trusting community of creators and backers. With their help, we could keep upgrading our system to make sure we create a great platform. For us, that trust we build together in the community has the greatest value." So that's exactly as you said. They leveraged it being free in order to build a community so that they could then upgrade and add more services to the platform itself.
And it looks like you could tell by looking at their site, they're not a fly-by-night company. In fact, at this time of this recording, ISS Vanguard has about 15 days left in their funding, and on this platform, they have already received $2.3 million in funding, and that is even on Kickstarter. That's an amazing result. So like Andrew was saying, Kickstarter's got millions of accounts, and if you hit a $1 million product, you're great. And Gamefound has way less, and they're hitting these big numbers.
Absolutely. And this is one of my suspicions, is that Awaken Realms is the bankroller for Gamefound. They have had, I believe, 11 successful projects on Kickstarter, and every one of them have just become huge. This War of Mine was their third project. They had 9,600 backers. They had they created Lords of Hellas, which had over 12,000. Nemesis exploded with over 30,000 backers, and then of course Tainted Grail was most recently released into the world. That had almost 42,000 backers. Aetherfields, 32,000 backers. Great Wall, and of course Nemesis Lockdown was most recently done on Kickstarter. They have brought in easily, probably $10 to $20 million.
Yeah, they've created a lot of goodwill in the community. They've, on their blog, they say that through offering the Pledge Manager for free, they've managed to help creators save almost 4.5 million euro. So they've been able to save content creators a lot of money through offering it for free, which again creates a lot of loyalty, a lot of goodwill within the community. Ultimately, the consumer is paying for all those things. It's the consumer who pays for the Stripe fees. It's the consumer who pays for the Kickstarter fee. So if you are a content creator and if you can offer the same service cheaper, you can ultimately make the same product a little bit cheaper for the end user, which is attractive.
Absolutely. So now the question becomes, what next? I know that their plan is to demonstrate the success of this particular project. They're going to have a lot of creators looking at how easy it is to use, how functional it is to, how close it compares to Kickstarter and that sort of thing. And they're going to, I believe phase 1 is launch ISS Vanguard. Phase 2 is open it up to certain companies. So it sounds like what they're doing is they're incentivizing companies to place their projects on Gamefound instead of Kickstarter. And then phase 3, they're going to open it up to allow you to, just like Kickstarter will allow you to create a project and seek approval and that sort of thing. They're going to open it up to the masses.
I think one thing that's going to help the platform explode is that they actually have introduced affiliate marketing. So this is what they say. A user that visits Gamefound using one of your referral links will be attributed to that link for the period of 30 days. All orders placed by that user in your project during that period will be counted towards the referral link's revenue. The fact that, let's say you're a board game reviewer, you can say, I reviewed this game, and then you can throw a referral link in there. It gives you a financial incentive to use Gamefound or push people towards Gamefound as opposed to Kickstarter. So I think Kickstarter is going to have to implement something like that pretty soon. Otherwise, Gamefound will just take over the review space.
That's incredible. So you're going to have, not only will you have the excellent development of the website and how easy it is to use, it really is quite easy, but you're also going to have, from the other end, people financially incentivized to send people to Gamefound. That creates an entirely new source of revenue for struggling content creators. I think that's fantastic because a lot of the time people are quite critical of paid previews. Creators many times are really, kind of bummed that they have to pay so much. Maybe their budget is quite low. I know Rado at the moment, he's quite popular. He's charging $1,000 or more for a preview for Kickstarter. You've got other up and coming creators like Quackalope. Jesse Anderson of Quackalope is up and coming. I mean, you're gonna have to pay $500 or more to get him to spend the time to do that. And I am very curious as to what will happen with these creators. I mean, they can't, Rado, if he gets very popular, he can't go to $2,000 or $3,000 per project. How does he expand his business, right? What he's doing, he's got a business, and other content creators are, this might be a part-time, maybe it's a side business, but it's a business. And to offer those content creators an additional way to earn revenue, that is huge. But the real crux of if it's going to work or not is when they open it up to everyone, all of the little creators, the first and second time creators that are that launch their game. Will they choose Gamefound or will they use Kickstarter? Because bottom line is Kickstarter has the organic traffic, the most organic traffic of any crowdfunding platform today. My curiosity, though, is that how much of that quote unquote organic traffic is actually paid traffic or traffic from another company that came in via their email list? I don't know. Kickstarter doesn't say.
I believe that Gamefound has something here. I believe if they continue to expand and grow like they are, and if they expand their vertical market, and if they're able to create a system from beginning to end for game developers, I think they'll be a powerhouse that can't be beat. For example, they started with the pledge manager, and now they're working on crowdfunding. But what if they also had a pre-crowdfunding system where you can create a landing page, a community, a mailing list, and get everything going? So they help you with that, and then you hit the button and switch over to your crowdfunding date. And then when that's done, it switches over to your pledge manager. And then once your pledge manager is complete and everything's been taken care of with your post crowdfunding, then you have the opportunity to switch over to like a e-commerce store and sell just like a normal business. I think if they are able to take that whole vertical marketing platform and run it through, the way they're going, I think they could do it. And if they do something like that, Kickstarter's got nothing on them.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great point. Hopefully the CEO Marcine's listening right now and taking your notes, and also crediting you with a percentage of sales of all of their online stores for such a wonderful idea. Remember me when you're filthy rich.
One of the dangers with Gamefound is that they could find themselves in a very vulnerable position if Kickstarter decides to innovate. If Kickstarter suddenly offers the exact same services that Gamefound does, they could find themselves in a very bad position. This is essentially what Facebook and these other big tech companies do. They find these startup companies that have really good ideas. Let's say, for example, Snapchat with their stories. And all they do is they say, great idea. They have far more funds and far more manpower to leverage that unique feature into their platform, so that now their existing base of users have no reason to go to Snapchat because, well, now Facebook has Snapchat, basically. So why do I need to go to that? And they're just going to stick on the platform. So Kickstarter, if they do go ahead and they innovate and they start incorporating some of these things that Gamefound is doing, well, then you might find that it goes nowhere. So that's the danger for that business.
I've seen, like you said, I've seen a lot of these major companies do things like that. Like, for example, like you said, Facebook, they got a marketplace now, they have dating, they have, you name it, they got it. And to be honest, yes, they will take a bit of a share, but I don't think they're going to wipe it out. I mean, look at Google. Google is one of the largest companies there, and they tried to create their own, system, Google Plus. Well, guess what? It's gone. People remember the original and they stick to it. And then, I mean, like I said, it will happen. Someone will probably copy them, whoever it is, even, Kickstarter or not. And they'll make a system that's very similar, and it will take a little bit of the share, but I have a feeling that it won't kill them.
Yeah. One of the things about Kickstarter versus something like Facebook has, tens of thousands of employees, and Kickstarter has about 150. And the ability for the development staff to change the platform, Kickstarter is kind of like a cruise ship, and Gamefound is like a speedboat. The cruise ship is a lot more stable and has a lot more passengers, but it takes a long time to turn. Whereas Gamefound is very nimble and mobile. They have small team of programmers, but they have a lot fewer users. And also the users on Gamefound, they don't have, I guess it's, like, for example, if you change something on Kickstarter, you change where one of the buttons are, it could be a huge problem for your bottom line. Whereas Gamefound, they are still able to be flexible and nimble because their user base isn't quite so ingrained into the way things are. I think that it'll be clear to creators and to backers that Gamefound is a better platform than Kickstarter, clearly a better platform with better tech and that sort of thing. But will they move is the question. Is Kickstarter good enough?
I have $1 million question for you, Andrew. So,
okay.
You have an upcoming game that will be released on a crowdfunding platform. So at this time, does this news sway your current operations on where you're going to be going when it comes to crowdfunding?
I mean, really, I've been speaking from my own desire. I look at Gamefound as a platform that has better usability and overall is a superior experience. But Kickstarter is the 800-pound gorilla now. So if I were to launch today, it would, and I had the choice between Gamefound or Kickstarter, I would have to choose Kickstarter because it's by far the greatest amount of organic traffic. Everybody that sends their traffic to Kickstarter, they could potentially see my project under recommendations or whatever it is. As we talked about in a previous podcast, Kickstarter does bring a significant amount of backers, and I would have to be very sensitive to that. So unless Gamefound does have this great, exodus of, unless Kickstarter has a great exodus of creators, then I have to use Kickstarter.
So just some additional features that Gamefound has that I'm really liking at the moment is that they have a notification that lets you know when the goal was reached of the campaign. So for example, on ISS Vanguard, they reached their funding goal within 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And that's a very powerful psychological notification which says this is in high demand. If you can get that timer as low as possible, I think it's just going to help you sell your game, essentially. And this is really going to stress the importance of your pre-marketing campaign and really executing that really well. If you can get your game funded in 30 seconds, it's going to look a lot better than a game that's funded over 10 days. So I really like that feature. Is there any other features that you guys like?
The first thing is when you actually get to the project page and you look at the various pledge tiers that you can pick, your rewards, you can select them in a box that actually scrolls down with you. One of the problems that Kickstarter, I don't know why, but you can actually scroll to a place that you cannot take action on Kickstarter's platform. And then after you've backed, you can see your back, I'm backer number 16,264 on the ISS Vanguard, and the amount I pledged and my actual rewards as well. And I can always manage my pledge there. It's a very, very cool way that they adapted. And then on the left-hand side, they've got actually what looked like almost like a table of contents that you can scroll through. If I wanted to look at stretch goals, I can click the stretch goal section. If I wanted to look at rewards, I can click the rewards section. I can look at shipping by clicking the shipping section on the left-hand side, which is really cool. It offers that constant, I always know where I am when I'm on this Kickstarter or on this Gamefound project, because, if I ever lose myself, I just go to the left-hand side and it's like, oh yeah, that's right, I wanted to look at stretch goals. Another thing is that the actual stretch goals, it seems they have a methodology for inputting them into the back end so that you're not just updating a picture on the front end and then, of Kickstarter and then writing an update about it to let people know, oh, we're halfway unlocked to the next stretch goal. I'm looking currently and you've got stretch goals that are, it's got the quote next to unlock stretch goal, which seems like it's been created on the back end of, and then been kind of coded in to show up here so that I'm not having to just create a picture and update a picture. You're actually going to be able to see a bar fill up as that gets closer to getting unlocked. And I find that to be really interesting. In addition to that, right on the project page, you can see add-ons and you can add that to your pledge with an easy little button. It's kind of scary because it's super, super easy. I backed the campaign. I went back to the actual campaign page. I hit add to pledge, and then all I have to do is hit the confirm button because they already have my credit card. They've already got, everything that they need. I know that the back end of the story is kind of clunky as a creator. When you work on the story, which is basically everything on your actual campaign page, it can be very difficult, which is why a lot of people, just from a programming standpoint, there are these random bugs that show up. Images don't display correctly. Spacing is off sometimes, and it takes some fiddling with to fix it. And this is a pretty commonly understood thing with creators nowadays, that you have to fiddle with it in order to make it look good. And I would imagine that Gamefound probably solved whatever was going on there.
they definitely seem to have a heavy hand on automation, trying to speed up processes for creators. In fact, one of the things they say on the website is this. It says, the less time creators have to spend on management and administration stuff, the more they can focus on creating amazing board games. So they really want to try streamline some of these processes of getting your games up on a crowdfunding site and on a pledge manager, and try automate as much of this as possible. So a lot of these features are looking really, really great for content creators.
But I really like how you can really customize your pledge project. So for example, like, on Kickstarter, I'll see different, you scroll through all the pledges and like, okay, this one comes with this and this one comes with this, but there might be something that you really, really want, but you have to get all the other stuff too, and then pay like this exorbitant price to get, the deluxe ultimate package to get the one thing you want that's added to the core. Where in this case, they, especially with the ISS Vanguard as an example, they have their core pledge rewards you could choose, and then you could mix and match the add-ons that you want. So it makes it very customizable. If I want the almanac, I can click on the almanac. If I want the expansions, I can click on the expansions. Or of course, if I'm hardcore and I want them all, I'll click on them all. I really like how I can pick and choose the extras that I want in my package.
One of the real advantages of a creator, and actually for us as a marketing agency of creators with board game campaigns, is that Gamefound, I can actually say how many people directly went from Facebook to Gamefound and back, and back their project. So how much money has Facebook raised, or has whatever marketing initiative, Board Game Geek, or you name it. So that's something that I have a lot more hope for, that we're going to get more accurate numbers from Gamefound whenever we do have a client on Gamefound. So if you want to be one of the first project adopters, I'll straight up take your project and compensate our marketing services. If you run a project on Gamefound and you want us to help, I will do everything, not for free, because I'm getting a lot out of it. I'm learning exactly what the deal is with this platform. So if that is you, then contact us, crowdfunding, at crowdfundingnerds.com.
All right, fellow nerds, looks like that's all the time we have for this week's episode. For more information on this episode and our other episodes, please visit crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a question for us, you can also go to crowdfundingnerds.com/question, and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. Thanks a lot, fellow nerds. See you all and have a great week.